All right, so Alex will not be joining us today. He's out of town and he won't be home for like another couple hours. So unfortunately, he won't be able to get on today's call. But it's okay. We'll just get through it. Let me go ahead and mute everybody. Come on, guys. Let's go. All right. So bit of a honestly, I'm gonna say it's been a good week. One loss for the most part, and then a couple of drills and a couple of winning trades. Probably one of my better weeks of the year, if I'm being honest. And I think it's rooting from my recent routine shift. Um, I used to make so many excuses as to why I have to or why I cannot work out in the mornings before session starts, and kind of just said, you know what, fuck it. Like I have a couple friends that go at 5 in the morning, so I'm gonna go at 5 in the morning, see how it goes. And week two is complete. I didn't miss a single day. I might have been late to like maybe one, but overall that's going really really well. And by the time I get out of the gym, and I hit the sauna also before I leave the gym, but by the time I get out of the gym, get some fresh air, sunrise is starting to appear, and I feel honestly ready. Whereas in comparison, I would wake up maybe 30, 45 minutes before session, and by the time I hit my desk, like it's not as productive because I haven't fully woken up. It takes me like an hour and a half ish to fully wake up. So overall, it's going well, and I think my overall, not, I wouldn't say my entire like all of my results, but I guess everything that I do will see some type of benefit in my opinion, because I do get, like, for example, I try to be at my desk by 8, and then by the time I literally have until like 4 or 5 p.m. to work or do anything that I want to do, and then after that I can kind of just relax and then start again the next day. So I'm actually able to do more with less time, just being a bit more organized. But let's go ahead and get into the chart work. Let's see, trade number one was GU. Yep, it was a GU drill, and this was on Monday. Because as you guys know, I don't like to trade Mondays or Fridays, just personal preference thing. But I still like to see the charts, and I like to see what can potentially occur. So my entire approach, right, as you guys know, I like to simplify it with direction, liquidity, execution. Right, what is my direction? My direction is bearish. My internal direction is bearish, and there is a clear lower high. Right, there's a clear lower high. We're technically bearish, right? And we are stuck in a consolidation. So if I get any type of bearish transition, then I can justify a potential continuation into the downside, right? So the only thing withholding price from the lower high into, right, the break of structure down here is this bullish POI, the final sell to buy move into the upside. And that's what's causing a bit of a reaction, right? The first time it actually fully reacts is here. But you kind of saw it want to give an internal transition. It just didn't go through. So that's one failure. You saw a second failure, a third failure, a fourth failure. So it's not really giving me the vibe that this is going to want to continue higher. So, all right, because I see relative equal highs, 1, 2, relative equal highs be taken, and we broke through the immediate POI. This is not disruption, right? That's not disruption. There's no reaction before the break. But there is a break of the entire POI, meaning that this is the final break, or the break of the final sell to buy move. Not to mention we have an engulfing candle, so there's inefficiency stuck in between here. So I just kind of justified this LG as an LGC because of the previous lower high, meaning that we could potentially continue lower. And that is what happened there. Very, very nice execution. Quick. Pretty much as soon as I took the screenshot, that one kind of went directly into profit, didn't come back. It even had a internal reaction for anyone looking to be a bit more conservative. You can see that there was a break of structure after the POI, confirming the POI. So if you really wanted to be extra conservative, you could have taken this execution, right, with an aggressive SL or a conservative SL. So overall, very good scenario. Continuation over reversal, as always. On to the next. This was the after for my EU internal LGC, I believe. Yep, EU internal LGC. And the breakdown for that was here. Right, so once again, direction, bearish. Liquidity has been taken, right? Because this is a solidified point, as that led into a structure break to the downside. We have a solidified high here, right? And we have a CBOS, because obviously we know we are bearish. This is a CBOS, but it is also taking liquidity because it is followed by an immediate liquidity grab. So we have LGC number 1 via these red lines, right? And there is a micro LGC here as well. And that micro LGC is my reason for the trade. But because it is a micro LGC, I'm looking for the immediate external target, right? As you guys know, internal transition, external target. So I'm not looking for this low, right? I'm looking for the immediate low after that. This is the final low that went into the high that broke structure here, giving us a CBOS, which led into, right, both LGCs. So I'm only aiming for the immediate structural point. I'm not aiming for the external, because this is a micro, and I don't know, right, if let's say this being potentially a minor intraday low because it created the entire move, right, I don't know if that's going to sustain itself. After we take out the first level of liquidity, we don't know what can happen, and we've seen this countless times over the years, where a low is swept, where even if you're pro trend in terms of a bearishness, then even after the liquidity is taken, this just doesn't continue, right? And I know a lot of us have seen some losses with that. That's why I always aim for the immediate target. Next, this was my loss of the week. Actually, this is AU. Yep, AU, where the model presented itself. The direction was there, but unfortunately the timing overall just wasn't there. I was selling a bit too low, even though I thought I was justifying the scenario by having a model in play, which based on this, I'm looking at potentially POI, I'm looking at internal reaction, I'm looking at the break of the POI, I'm looking at the inefficiency fill, and I'm looking for this to continue lower, right? But the only thing that kind of made me hesitate here, but I didn't think too much of it in the time, was whether or not we touched this POI or not. This POI was, I believe, on the M5 or M15 or something like that. And it had like tapped it perfectly, like to the absolute pipette. We didn't technically get into the region. We kind of just tapped the literal open of the POI. So I don't know if that was maybe my reason for losing, but it's just not the ideal scenario for me. However, the bearish transition occurred, relative equal highs is taken, but we have an internal structural disruption, meaning we have a low into a high, into a retracement, which means that this high should realistically be taken. So I cannot be bearish yet. So once we have unwillingness, then a break, then this is justified entry number 1, where once we reach initial TP or initial target, you can move your invalidation into the solidified point. And where I entered my entry, right, it could have technically been immediately taken out. So just part of the game. I'm not too worried about this loss. Just caught selling a bit too low from an external standpoint, and by that I mean my major intraday. So it is what it is. Next scenario, EU is probably my favorite trade of the week. The reason why I thought this was my favorite trade of the week was because this is just a textbook play. I was 100% confident this was going to give me a bearish move. This was 100% confident in this move, and fortunately, it went in my favor. But in my opinion, this was my favorite trade of the week because it shows a model to the T. It follows every single rule. It follows the 3-step framework, and it went directly into TP right after the entry was hit. So once again, what is my direction? Right, if you guys zoom out a little bit more, my major intraday is actually bullish. But like I said, when I'm looking at my scalps, I'm really only looking at 3 main levels of structure, which is my micro, my scalp, and my minor intraday. Right, my minor intraday is technically bearish. Right, we broke a low, technically it is bearish here. even if the major may be bullish, right? But the minor is bearish, right? Not to mention we have a solidified high, sorry, which leads to the pullback high, which means that realistically we should be looking for, right, the previous low. So immediately after the high is solidified, we come into the region. But as you all know, this is still potentially a pullback, because who's to say that we don't have a solidified low and the major is technically still intact. So I need a reason to be 100% bearish and a reason to execute. And my reason to execute came through, right, the solidification of this low as potential internal unwillingness, right? Not external unwillingness. This is external unwillingness once we break this high. But once the internal unwillingness is confirmed, right, then I'm looking to see what's going to happen. And the only region that makes sense for me is this region here, which is my final buy to sell move. My final buy to sell move. And I'm not going to sell here, because we have internal unwillingness. There is no model, there is no transition. So for me, this is a high risk sell, because even if we are pro trend, and maybe I can put my SL at the invalidation, which would have worked out in hindsight, but at the time, there is internal unwillingness, there is no transition, which means I cannot be 100% confident that this is going to continue lower. So if anything, I wait to see what happens after the POI has been tapped. And this POI here is what led into a confirmed reaction, making this POI valid. But at the same time, we have just broken through the solidified point that was considered to be internal unwillingness, leading into the conclusion that we have a liquidity grab continuation LGC pattern once again. And I'm only looking to take my execution based on the final buy to sell move internally, which led into the break of this high, and then led into the downside move, which confirmed the LGC. And that led me to be very, very confident that this is going to continue lower, just because we have a bearish model on a bearish trend, and we've already taken some type of liquidity one way, so I'm looking to take liquidity the other way. But yeah, this is 100% my favorite trade of the week. And this was another representation of the same move, right? Like I said, we technically have a CBOS to the upside, which means that this is solidified as internal unwillingness. But once that internal unwillingness is broken, then we have a structural range to play based off of, and that is the LGC. Next. This one, I will say I was being a bit hasty. I don't think this is something I should have executed on. But the reason why I was executing was because I had seen another potential LGC model, right? Because up until this region, we had really only seen, immediate continuation, right? And here we actually saw that after the immediate continuation, we have a CBOS and we have a break of structure immediately after that. So that to me inclines that we have an LGC model in play. Not to mention we have one final buy to sell push, and that buy to sell push is my continuation. But the problem here is not necessarily the LGC model itself, it's the target. I'm aiming for a previous external target, right? So realistically, in hindsight, my SL 100% needed to be at this high, because as you guys know, the only non-negotiable I have with having a SL at invalidation, the only non-negotiable is that invalidation has to always be a solidified point. So for example, there is a solidified point and we have a break of structure, then we have another break of structure which solidifies the high. Therefore, this follows that criteria, that non-negotiable criteria. But the question of which solidified point to use is then personal preference. This is much more aggressive than this conservative invalidation, only because this invalidation is also the immediate external invalidation. So, whereas this is the internal invalidation. But like I said, the only issue that I didn't like was that the target was not necessarily a previous structure point, right? We're aiming for a previous low from a previous day, which is a different type of scenario. Whereas if we were to compare, like for example, the other trade, let me show you once again, my target, especially for majority of my trades, they are external targets that are pretty much immediately being shown. I'm not guessing to see we're gonna come down here or something like that. So that's something I really didn't like. But I still said, you know what, it is what it is. We'll take it how it goes. And after that, we had our TPB hit, but the management here is extremely key because you guys know that my invalidation is always, like I said, a solidified point. So if we are to have this structure break, that does not mean this is my invalidation. I look for a CBOS continuation before I move my invalidation, right? So for me to move my SL this quick would pretty much lead me to a unjustified break even. And I did not move my SL until after I saw a CBOS continuation, meaning once we have the CBOS and then we have the continuation to the downside, okay, once this breaks, now I can move my SL here, but it doesn't really make much of a difference in terms of an RPOV because this is a 4 pip stop. So rather than a 4 pip stop, it's now 3 pips. So my risk is from 1R to 0.7R, 0.75R, sorry. But either way, if I'm to move my invalidation, this is the only way that I can do it. Because I know that if I was to move to break even, I would have hit a break even and then I wouldn't have hit target. And you guys know that that's something that's happened to us over the years, countless times. So rather than moving to break even, I move my SL to invalidation. And it will never leave an invalidation point. For example, right, once this occurs here, then I don't see a problem with moving my invalidation here. Because let's say I'm in profit, rather than having my invalidation at a 0.75R or negative 0.75R, sorry, I could have my invalidation at about a 1R. It's estimate, a little bit less, but I have my invalidation at a 1R, and we just broke this point here. So rather than waiting for the external invalidation to be taken, I know that at least if I'm taken here, and if it is to continue, then at least I got some profit out of it. Whereas if I was to have done it here, not only does it not follow the CBOS continuation rule, but I would have taken a potential loss. So I'm willing to compromise for a stop profit because I would hate to see this, right, create this move to the downside. We see these two bullish candles, and then you see just an explosion to the upside. Because now, right, I've not only not hit my TP, but this could potentially be an LG leading into a move into the upside, which would mean that my external validation would be hit. And yes, my risk is managed. Yes, I moved my invalidation when it was needed, but I've now lost all of this time and all of this bandwidth. And for me, that's a bigger loss than the money itself. But other than that, I think that's the last one for today. Yeah, I think that's the last one for today. I was looking at charts today, like I was telling you guys. I was actually looking around here. I was hoping to see maybe a potential LGC, whereas then I would have been able to capitalize to the downside, but we just reacted, then gave disruption to the upside, led to a target. Now we're coming lower, but there was no true target for me. I knew that my bias was bearish, but I didn't see any execution here for the most part. Same with AU. GU was the one I didn't really like at all today. Yeah, see this one, not the biggest fan of. This actually just reacted. Maybe. And 15 wick. Yeah, like I see this coming lower. I just don't see any potential POIs to reference. As of now. But I do see this continuing lower. Yeah, interesting. This one's actually an LGC. So who's to say we don't see a continuation to the downside here? Previous direction. we'd be aiming for at least this bullish POI. But other than that, do you guys have any questions, concerns? What do you guys think?
Fredo, that was amazing. I've just taken that GU short actually, which is quite nice. It was on that
Which
sort
one?
of the liquidity grab just here. There was a 1 minute POI swoop, which I was able to get the continuation on after the liquidity grab.
Nice.
I'm on forex.com. It looks slightly different on your screen. But on the 30-second, if you look at the POI reaction off of the bullish momentum at the very extreme, it looks different on yours.
I see
I
it. I
can't
see it.
annotate on your screen, but it looks really clean on the final POI reaction from that demand at the about 8:30. There was a swoop on the third. There was that swoop there. And
And there was
then if you have a look
destruction.
at the bottom bit, at the very bottom demand on the left at like 8:30, the extreme, that demand leg, it swooped on the 30 seconds before going down, which was really clean. So I'm just in
Nice.
trade now.
Yeah.
So
Continue.
yeah.
This would have been my reference point, and
Yeah,
issue
exactly.
with creating these 30-second time frames. Like, I don't believe in this whole like you get lost in smaller time frames. Like, the only difference with the smaller time frame and a higher time frame is the amount of opportunities you're going to get. Whether favorable, unfavorable, it doesn't matter. Just the amount of opportunities you're going to get is just more frequent. Which is why I think the only way to clear the confusion is to just set proper parameters, proper targets. See, like for this type of trade, I wouldn't want to take this into, let's say, I wouldn't want to take that into this POI for the most part, only because of where that POI and that entire idea originated from, being here, meaning the internal order flow disruption that's present right here based on the POI reaction and then breakthrough order flow disruption. This means that I would only aim for this immediate low. Internal transition, external target.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that's probably the only thing that I would say about that. But if I was aiming for like the M5 POI that I'm telling you about, then I need the entire move to come out, and then I need a retracement, and then I need a transition, and then I need this to come to the POI, like, because I need the scalp POV to match the scalp trade, if that makes sense.
Got you. I'll send my chart in after it either hits TP or stop loss, and I'll show you the analysis.
Sure.
The key part which you just covered, which is really helping me, is this not moving stops to break even until you see another a CBOS or a liquidity grab to the downside. It's something which has massively made my win rate go up. Obviously, I'm only doing like 2R trades at the moment, but yeah, my win rate is up like 23% in the last 2 months implementing that change. So yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it's
So
nice.
thanks,
It's just, I don't know. I just don't. It doesn't make sense to move your stop loss to break even because your execution is not perfect. If that makes sense. Like, if we were catching the absolute perfect pipette moves, okay, then we can move our SL to break even, because the break even equals the invalidation.
Definitely, mate. Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, anybody else? Any more questions, concerns, any case studies anybody wants to go over? Any trades?
Nothing from me, mate. I'll put my recognition stuff in the channel later. I've got
For sure.
I think 6 trades.
Perfect,
So yeah,
man.
I'll put them in.
Awesome, thank you. I know you didn't trade NQ, but what is this doing? Oh wow, that actually hit all-time highs again. That's crazy. Excuse me. Yeah, it's looking short-term bearish, bro. Excuse me. Like you could see the you can see structural disruption. Right, low, high, solidified high, pullback, low, solidified, structural disruption. So you're seeing the reaction right now. I'm kind of betting on this to continue a bit lower. That's what we're seeing this react right here. I bet that's the final buy to push. I mean, buy to sell push. Where did the volume start? Yes. So solidified point, low. This is where the low, high, low, high, high. So this is where my, if I'm looking at the full external based on H1. Oh, and yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, structural disruption there. If you guys really think about it as well, the LGC and the structural disruption are literally the same thing. But there's one thing differentiating it, and I don't know if you guys know that. Does anybody know the difference between the two? No, it's not an LGC. There's one difference with an LGC and a SD. And this is why I don't trade many SDs. I've mentioned it before. I don't know if you guys can recall. Anybody know? Anybody know? Nope. Okay, I'll tell you guys the difference then. It's an SD is inherently a reversal and an LGC is a continuation. SD right? SD where the low solidified, that then breaks through, right? And we have the continuation to the downside. But because we are already bullish and this is a conversion to bearish, this is inherently a reversal scenario. Whereas if we have an LGC, we are previously bearish. We have an LG that matches that previous direction, and we have the execution. That's the only difference. Same sequence, just one is a reversal, one is a continuation. Cool. No worries, man. No worries, man. Have a good night. But yeah, other than that, that's all I have for today. Does anybody else have any questions, concerns, etc.? Yeah, no worries. I'm also this weekend we're going to be working on trying to get Alex's content onto the website. So fingers crossed it's done within like 2-3 weeks, just because it's a lot of content. But yeah, just please be a little patient with that, and I'll make sure that gets put on the website, and then you guys have like a brand new set of videos to watch. So other than that, I appreciate you guys hopping on. I hope everybody has a great weekend, and I will see y'all next week.